Okay, hello again. Hey, we got a new story tonight. We're going to talk about the adventure, the exciting dilemma of choosing between Michael Jordan on the one hand or your wife on the other hand. What do you do in those circumstances? Well, it was 1998 and it was the last year of Phil Jackson coaching the Bulls, the sixth and final year of the championship run, and Michael's last year in Chicago. And we were up in Chicago for Christmas holidays, and I scored a pair of tickets to the Bulls game, and I was going to go with Bridget, but my sister-in-law Maureen said, "Oh my gosh, Bulls game, I've been waiting forever to see what this whole Michael Jordan mania is about." So I said, "Yeah, you should come." I said, because I'm not worried about this, because I was right in the middle at that time of this practice that I had of going to games, going to big sporting events, and finding my ticket outside on the sidewalk, looking for that killer single to get some really great seats. And you know what? I had a lot of fun with that. I had a lot of great adventures, met some great people that way, and this is yet another story of that. So so the girls go into the seats and I'm out beating the pavement trying to find a seat, and it's not proven pretty easy. It's a tough ticket, and I'm not seeing any kind of seat that got me excited, so I pressed on. But I talked with one guy who had a really kind of a strange offer to me and when I first heard it I was like, oh boy, this is like, where does this all stuff come from? I've never heard this before. He's telling me he had a seat where we'd be sitting up in the press box, and we'd also have access to the media dining room before the game. I'm like, what? What's this all about? That doesn't sound. That sounds that my alarm went off. The fishy alarm went off. So I said, you know what? I just would want to get a great seat down by the court and be done with it. But that didn't materialize for me. And make my long story a little shorter, the guy finally came up to me. He said, look, he was frustrated with me because I didn't believe him. So he said, listen, I'm just gonna give you the damn ticket because I'm frustrated that you don't believe me. And I said, all right, I got nothing else going on. Let's see what this is all about. So it turns out this fella was a Xerox copier technician, and he had a couple of tickets for the game. He was the technician on duty to make certain that the machines ran for the press in the press room. And so we went to the media dining room. I said, that's pretty cool. And we rode the elevator up to the press box where we watched the game. And then he told me, he said, here's the fun part comes in. He says, okay, after the game, we're going into the Bulls locker room. I go, what? We're going into the Bulls locker room? He goes, oh yeah, but before we go into the Bulls locker room, we're going to the post-game press conference. And I said, well, I got to see what this is all about. I mean, this guy's been on the level so far. So sure enough, we ride the elevator down. Next thing I know, we're walking into the room. We're sitting in the front row for Phil Jackson's press conference after the game. All the Chicago news stations are all whirling at the back. It's a big atmosphere. It was like Phil's, I think it was 500th win as a coach, is a milestone game for him. And my guy says, as we're sitting in the front row, he says, he nudges me and he says, if you open your mouth, I'll kill you, because you can't do that. You'll get me in trouble. So we watched the press conference, and they asked a few questions about the game. And of course, the only thing that any Chicago media person wanted to talk about was, why does Phil say it's his last year? Why can't he keep going? And Phil says, I'm going to talk about the game. I'm not going to talk about that. And that's all they were asking. He says, all right, I'm out of here. Phil walks out. He's got all the media on his heels, following him out the door, shouting questions at him. So my guy says, okay. I said, that was pretty cool. He says, okay, we're going in the locker room. I said, what? In the locker room? At this point, the game's over, and I got the ladies. They're out at the car, which is parked, maybe what was it, Bridget, a block and a half apart. away from the stadium. I'm like, oh boy, I'm looking at my watch. They're going to be looking for me. You know, this is in the era before cell phones, so I'm not able to communicate that I got a chance to go into the Bulls locker room. I said, but I got to see what this is all about. So we walk into the Bulls locker room, and first thing I know, I've got the big guy from Australia walking by me, and I saw Steve Kerr, and I said, wow, this is pretty cool. And most of the players are in the inner part of the locker room. We're in the outer part of the locker room. And I notice where all the reporters are gathered around Michael Jordan's locker. And they're waiting for him to come out and make some statements. And I said, holy cow, this is my one chance. I got a chance to stand next to Michael Jordan in the Bulls locker room. I'm looking at my watch and say, holy cow, you know, I'll ask for forgiveness. I can't ask for permission. So sure enough, Michael comes out of the inner part of the locker room, and he comes up to his locker and he stands. He literally stands up on his stool, and I'm 3 feet away from him, behind a reporter or two, and I'm listening to him talk about the game. He's talked in a low voice. There were shouty questions at him, and it was really cool. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. I gotta go, because it's been really late, and the girls are gonna be wondering, like, what the heck happened to me? I got a great story to tell them. And what would you do? Would you say, nah, I can't see Michael Jordan, I gotta go? Or would you, let's see how it goes kind of thing?
Well, I'm here today to be the yin and the yang of my husband's adventures. He just talked about all the fun he had with Michael Jordan, and I'll tell you the other side of what happened that night. First of all, I like to say he always takes care of me when we go to a game. Gets good seats, sacrifices his seats like he did tonight. We had the 2 seats, and he went off to adventure to get in. And we watched the game. He visited at halftime, said, oh, I'm sitting up there in the press box. We said, fine and dandy. The game happened, it was over with, and then we sat there and waited, which, if you know me, it's been a lot of sitting around waiting times, and sat there and waited for Tim to come to our seats, Maureen and I, and after a while we said, okay, maybe he went to the car. So we left, and we had been there a little while waiting, so we walked out to the car. At this point, we were parked near an exit, and our car was like an obstacle in the middle of ants. It was the only car not moving, and obviously he wasn't there. So all the cars were piling out. So we waited there for a little bit, and then we walked all the way back to the arena, and it was locked at that time, so we started banging on the doors, and they let us in. They're like, what are you doing here? And so we're wandering around, and after a while we ended up, Tim found us, and you know, that's the other side of those adventures, are the people standing around waiting.